doing whatever it is that you're doing as an entrepreneur, you want to be moldable and you want to be humble, especially in the beginning. But once you've fallen on your face a couple times, do it the way that you need to do it. If you want to mix in creativity, if you want to mix in every day doesn't look the same, that's the best part about being an entrepreneur, is being able to work the way you want to work. And as long as you're being productive, each day can look different.
Welcome to another episode of the A1 Experience. I've got somebody on the show today that this is my first time meeting, but we've been friends. I know her actually through my wife, and I made it a goal to have more boss ladies on my show, and she's somebody that came to mind. And so Morgan, Monsees, I'm excited to have you.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah. So you are a woman entrepreneur that spent 12 years in corporate tech sales before jumping into your entrepreneurship journey in solar energy, amongst a lot of other things. But I'll have you share, your personal story, your background, and how you got started in this field.
Yeah, so really kind of boils down to just being in sales and figuring out what I wanted that avenue to look like. But that was a super long path. Like I've done everything from photocopier sales to selling toilet paper for Cintas. That was one of my very first jobs.
You were busy in 2020. No,
I know, right? I thought about that. But the reality is it kind of all led me to this, but just the experience in sales. So I started out just an entry level, and then wanted to figure out like what I really was passionate about. Okay. So not just selling any product, but selling something that I was interested in. So yeah,
like that's kind of like how it works for all of us.
Yeah, totally.
I mean, I fell into sales by accident, selling sunglasses, and then network marketing, and then banking, and then led to insurance. So when did you start? You said 12 years ago? No, when did you start in sales?
Yeah, 15 years. This will be my 15th full year in sales. So 2012 was really my first real sales job, like entry-level sales job. But the path it's been all over the place, because you wanna make a mark and do really well in whatever industry you're in. But I think in the beginning, it was really just about having a job. Like I wanted to have a job, and I wanted to get my foot in the door in some sort of sales role. But I was the same as you. I didn't know what I wanted to do, but I knew I couldn't sit behind a desk and just be on a computer all day. Yeah. I needed to be able to have some sort of sense in community and be able to talk to people in some way. And sales, I guess, was my outlet to that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So were you always good at sales, or did you kind of...
I think I have to attribute it to my mom. Yeah, my mom was a big role model for me. She was the national sales, I guess, director for Bloomberg BNA for about 41 years. So I always saw her going on work trips and getting out and talking to people, being social. So it felt like more that she was just like, it seemed like she was just going to dinners back then. It seemed like she was just like always like going out and, having conversations with people. But at the end of the day, it's really just figuring out. She was the role model for me for so long, but I kind of was, I guess, a natural in the beginning, but it was sharpening the skill. It was sharpening the skill of knowing, okay, I'm not just going to always be good at something unless I do the work behind the scenes. So I guess I was kind of a natural in the beginning, but it's evolved. I've completely evolved over that amount of time. Yeah. I would say 5-6 years in is where I really felt like I started to get some sort of stride. Okay. The first 3 years was brutal. So yeah.
So how did you get into that stride? Was it just
mentors?
Or,
yeah, I would say mentors was the big one for me. So my mom as a mentor, having really good managers, which now that's completely taken over the space that I'm in, where it's like nobody can be good at something if they don't have some sort of good mentor that helps them with a plan, a goal in mind, and a strategy. So I was really fortunate. I always had really good mentors at almost every single position I had. Bosses that cared, that wanted to get involved, going on appointments with me. But you also have to work on yourself and sharpen those skills behind the scenes too. Right. But I would attribute it all to mentors. And so now that's really what I want my focus to be on, is helping entrepreneurs. Yeah. And because I know it's impossible to get better if you don't have somebody that's cheering for you on your side, but also giving you kind of the blunt reality sometimes too. So It's not always just, easy. So it's the mental side of it too. So the mentors is the big one for me.
For sure. Explain exactly what you're doing now because I know you're involved with solar, but you've got, it's opened up some doors for some other avenues. So explain where you're at right now.
Where I ended up now was solely because I was a solar rep, right? I had, been doing kind of the same thing for the last few years, running a pretty decent sized team. But I was doing
You
it.
sold solar first, like yourself. You
Yeah.
were door knocking, cold calling,
Yep.
and then you developed a team.
Developed a team, trained the team how to be successful in setting appointments. But I think there was a lot of gaps, and I think there's a lot of gaps. I don't know if it's in your space as well, in the door-to-door space, where you give someone like a pitch at the door, right? And you're like, go do this. And yes, the action is what's going to get the momentum for sure. But at the same time, sometimes there needs to be a little bit more hand-holding in the process. So I think there's a big retention problem when it comes to that, just because there's not a lot of focus on developing that person. And I noticed that, and I wasn't really capable of doing things my way. So now it's more about working on, okay, what are the issues in this person's business, and how can I help them maybe add another product or fill the gaps in their current business. So when it comes to solar, the roof makes sense with solar. It just does. It 100% makes sense to do your roof before you put solar on your roof, right? But unfortunately, there's a lot of solar companies out there who don't know how to properly partner with a roofing company. And that maybe there's a roofing company that doesn't know how to properly partner and what those needs are for the solar company and what's going to help that whole project flow more efficiently. And it's an issue. And it was something I kind of I realized and was like, okay, this is an issue, and it's not just an issue for me. This is an issue for reps across the board. So now it's more about, okay, what are the problems that they have in their business, and how can I help them not only streamline this process, but make it an income earner from another avenue. So now we're not just making money on solar, you're making money on the roof as well. Maybe you're also selling alarms, things of that nature. But I think when it boils down to it, it's all the same skill. It's all sales skills at the end of the day. So if they have those skills in their back pocket, then they'll never have to worry about what really the product is, right? So it's been fun. It's a lot more creative than just like being on the doors all day. And getting to help people maybe that were in the same shoes as I was 2 or 3 years ago or 4 or 5 years ago. So that's the biggest change.
I thought it was interesting. I looked up, I had this perception that solar reps had some of the highest turnover out of, some of the top industries as far as turnover is concerned. And then I found that insurance actually has a higher turnover than solar. And I was completely shocked by that.
That actually shocks me too, because I come from a place where I was at the same job for 4 or 5 years. Before I left corporate to go into door to door, which I guess is a big thing to touch on, but before I left to go into door to door, I just assumed that when you start a job, you really give it your all for at least a year before you decide if you leave, right? And in door to door, there's people that stay for a day and then leave 2 weeks, 3 weeks. So I think if you give somebody the confidence, though, they're going to want to stay.
Okay.
And it's always going to be easy or harder in the beginning.
Right. For sure.
And then as you get more confident, then it's like second nature, right? Because
it's always easy when you have like a pipeline, or you got some people that you know are gonna do it.
Yeah. The beginning is always the roughest, filling the pipeline and then making sure that you're following up. And I always remember like the anxious nerves when you're new, and those go away when you know what you're talking about.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
Let me ask you, because door to door, I've done something similar where I sold mobile app technology going to business, and that's basically the same thing as going door to door, and that was fun. Not really, I'm being sarcastic.
Yeah,
but,
yeah.
It was like
I've done a similar
hot summers in Vegas, and but a lot of character growth there. Would you say it's easier being a woman doing door to door sales than it is being a man doing door to door sales?
Yeah, I think that there's no way to deny that a woman coming to the door is going to be less invasive than a man. Right. For instance, for a really long time, I knocked with my boyfriend. And he's got tattoos. He is military, so he has, that authoritative figure when he walks through the door. But it's you're a woman walking to someone's house, someone's going to open the door more likely than if a man's, knocking the door, especially if it's after dark. And a lot of door-to-door reps are knocking after dark. That's when people are home. Yeah. So I think that it's hard to deny that it would be easier, but I also think it just boils down to just work ethic. Because I know so many men in this space that crush it, but it's just because of their work ethic. So
I bring that up because when I first bought my house, there was some door knockers, right?
Yeah.
I ignored the first couple, but then I saw two girls and I was just like, oh, what do they want?
Yeah,
So
exactly.
They
Yeah.
looked non-threatening, I was
Yep.
like, let me see what they want. And they were good too.
Yep. Yeah. Well, and I think if you learn door to door, so I was in corporate for the majority of my career. And what's different about corporate is there's rules and there's checks and balances, and then you're there for a job. This is an all commission-based role where you're basically like, okay, go out there and try to find some business, right? And even as a tenured salesperson, I remember my very first day on doors, I'm like, this is not the same as B2B. Right. I was like, this is so much more. I'm going to someone's home. You never know what's on the other side of that door or what's going on inside the home. Like maybe they've had the most stressful day. You're catching them right after work. So it's more of a battle too with yourself and like resilience in pushing through the difficulty, because it's even on the phones, like it's so much easier for someone to hang up on someone on the phone, but it's a completely different thing when someone's slamming the door in your face. So it builds up some sort of resilience, but I do think that being a woman in door to door, it doesn't make it necessarily any easier, but it definitely makes people answer the door more than.
You might have a better response rate,
Yeah.
but it doesn't change the fact that you need to know what you're talking about.
Totally.
And you need to get over that. Do the numbers game kind of as
Yeah.
well, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. And I remember even looking back on,
You
the
match
last.
that combo, you could be a dangerous person.
Yeah. Yep. If you're confident in any product, you're going to be able to talk to someone at the door. But it's just a completely different ball game when you're entering someone's home. You're in their space that entire time. So, but I like it. It's something about it. I think it's a little bit of a rush. It's definitely, to me, the most difficult type of sales.
Yeah.
When it comes to kind of comparing all the ones that I've done. So
solar sales would have been so much easier in like the 2000s when we were young.
Yep.
Because everybody answered the door.
Mm-hmm.
But nowadays it's like, who's ringing my doorbell?
Or even 10 years ago before everybody knew what it was already.
Yeah.
And you're knocking on a fresh door and explaining to them what solar is for the first time. And they're like, I've never heard of that. That sounds amazing.
Yeah. Which could be a benefit and a negative, because the benefit is it's more common now, but the negative, it's like, I've never heard of this. It's a scam.
And the majority aren't going to be the early adopters where they're like, let me try this brand new thing on my roof. So, but it makes it's more innovative. I mean, coming from all the things that I did before, this was something that I felt like was impactful for the environment. And then it's also impactful, to people's lives. My first month I came in, I had never made more than $110,000, $120,000 in a year. And my first month I came into solar and just did exactly what I was told to do and made $30,000 my first month. Wow. So I was hooked after that. So it's like, that's when you start you're like, why would I do anything else other than just this job if I can just make this much money? So I think it's just figuring out what that balance looks like for you. But it's changed so many lives of people that I know. But it's also made people realize maybe this isn't for me. So it's definitely a make or break type of industry. So
right. So you have gone from the doing it yourself route to more of more like the consulting route.
Yeah.
Or
So I feel
like the team route.
Yeah. So I feel like that's really what my role has shifted into. And I actually was just having a conversation on the way here. So many reps in the solar space that don't have a roofing partner. And my role has shifted to supporting them. Really, a lot of times I'm more so fielding phone calls. I am in solar appointments during the day as well. But ultimately, my role has shifted into being support for whatever avenue that is. Whether it's for solar, whether it's for roofing, whether it's for Bitcoin Black, which is I'm in a sales director role for Bitcoin Black. really I'm just on the phone and I'm connecting people. So I always kind of joke around, like, I do know the products that I'm selling, but I always joke around that I'm really just like the quarterback of the meeting, right? Like I'm connecting the right people in the right room to have those conversations, which is really kind of, going back to what I did in my corporate job. So I'm more of just a connector of knowing what products are necessary for filling that issue or like filling that gap. So, which is it's more challenging, more than just going and knocking on someone's door in my case.
Yeah.
So,
absolutely. So you brought up the Bitcoin, Bitcoin Black. So how does Bitcoin and solar, like, what do those two things have to do with each other?
So from the solar space, you have a lot of reps making a lot of money in a very short period of time. And it's really just twofold. It's number one, you want to teach your reps not only how to run their own business, because we're all 1099, but you want to make sure that they're investing that properly, right? And whether it's in, regular 401ks, IRAs, things like that, or in the crypto space, I want to be able to actually get that message across to those reps. So from those relationships, I've, opened my network really to the crypto space, which is kind of where I ended up taking the position for Bitcoin Black Card. So it's a high limit Visa Black Card that's loadable with crypto. And what I was able to do is say, okay, if you are in the crypto space, how do we avoid? I mean, as entrepreneurs, it's an incentive game, right? The more that you play the game, the less you're going to pay in taxes. And there's a legal way to do that. And what we're able to do is actually help them invest in crypto, but then actually have a way to spend it. So just by nature, I was talking about this with people in the solar space, in the roofing space that had high commissions. It's like, okay, we've maxed out our 401k, maybe we've maxed out our Roth IRA. Where else are we putting our money, right? And as you can tell, Bitcoin's been doing pretty well, especially the last few years. So that's kind of where I kind of realized, okay, they don't have a person that's out talking about this. This is a very exclusive thing to have. And it's solving a problem for a lot of reps who have a lot of money in crypto. They have all this money in crypto, but if they take it out, they're going to be paying taxes on it. So it allows them to be able to actually spend through Visa without actually paying additional taxes, which obviously if you're self-employed, you're probably
They're getting paid in crypto?
It's if you buy crypto with your money. Yeah.
Gotcha,
So you'd have to purchase crypto or
how are they not paying taxes?
So the ability to actually put it on a card and spend it through Visa. So there's fees obviously involved, and that's how it's all done, legally. But instead of you basically putting it through your bank, if you put crypto in your bank account, you're paying 30% on taxes. It's kind of similar to like unearned income or or not considered earned income in taxes.
Okay.
So it's just taxed at a higher rate.
Okay.
So it's kind of twofold. So you have a solar person, they're brand new to sales, they're making all this money. What are they most likely going to do the first year?
Probably blow it.
Yeah, and most all salespeople blow it, like especially the first year. So if I can say, okay, now that you're making all this money, let's set you up with an LLC. Let's make sure it's filed as an S corp. Okay, now we're maxing out all these things. Where else can we put our money? And just be able to kind of tell my financial story and that journey from being W-2, where I was getting my commissions taxed at 30%. And then, okay, being an entrepreneur can be fun, but it's so much less daunting if I have somebody that's explaining to me how to set everything up and, what things are deductions. And I, again, always had really good mentors in the space that shared these things with me. And that's a really big part, I think, of being successful when you're an entrepreneur is having everything organized and knowing like where to invest and what to invest in.
Right.
But it allows them to turn around and go travel using, crypto. So that's, more forward thinkers, early adopters in that space that say, I want to get away from the banks, or I want to get away from this normal way of spending my money and put it somewhere where I have a little bit more assurance in another space. So it's a cool place to be because it's not, not everybody is in the space right now, but I think when it comes to door-to-door reps and earning high commissions, they want to start kind of dabbling in that. And when you're young,
Right.
you can be a little bit riskier too.
That's very true.
Yeah.
You got the older folks that they're a lot more conservative. They
Yep.
want their money in stocks or treasuries or bonds and
401ks.
things like that. Yeah. It's very true that the younger people are more willing to, I guess, have that. So that's actually a very good point. Yeah, I know a lot of younger people that I know have a little bit of crypto.
Yeah.
At least something. Yeah. So, but I always get torn. I just had this conversation with Cobb, Chris O'Brien, and he owns no real estate. He owns no real estate. He's just all crypto. And for me, it's like, I mean, it might be a higher risk or higher reward for him, but it's hard for me to not see the value in just owning land and things like that.
I think both are important.
I think both, absolutely, for sure.
But I'm on board with
one thing that we can all probably agree on is cash is just not worth keeping in cash. It's
But I think it's like the people who are in the bank space or the I guess more the space that isn't crypto, right? They're saying, I'm too nervous to put my money in crypto because I'm worried that, something could happen. So it's kind of the worry on both sides. But I think for me, it was more so, how do I spend it without paying all this extra money in taxes? Because I'm basically, going to be paying way too much in taxes. So that's kind of where, again, it was like a solution to a problem. But I think like anything else, you should have kind of not all your eggs in one basket. So, because real estate's never going to go away. Obviously, we're going through a crazy spell here in Vegas, but
and there's still a lot less inventory and not building fast enough. So interesting. What are some of the things you said something about solo reps not being trained properly, and there is some truth to I think about when people don't work out in a sales role, you got to ask yourself, like, did we train them and give them everything we possibly could have to make sure that they were successful? And hopefully you can answer that question, yes, every single time. But a lot of times I don't think that people are getting the proper training. But it's a fine line because sometimes sales, you just got to recognize like, this isn't for them. This isn't for you, you know? But what are some of the things that, when you say, hands-on training, what are some of the things that you're teaching them?
So my big thing is it's always going to be the mental side. But I think looking back on like my past management roles, if you're not in a management role and you're not doing what's best for you in that moment in time, you can't really be the best leader for for those that you're helping, right? But I always had tons of hands-on training, going to appointments with my managers, being in the field with them, I think is the big thing. And I think that's where door-to-door really fails, is they say, just go out and do the job, right? Go out and fall on your face and do the job. And I can't remember one time in any of my previous sales roles where I didn't have like an intensive 6-week to 8-week training where I'm really learning everything before I'm out in the field. I wasn't just out in the field, the first day, right? So I think being out in the field, being active with reps, if we need to do offline training, a lot of times we do training twice a week. But if it means like doing a one-off, I'm all about it, and I make myself available. And I think that it's about having boundaries too. But I want to be more hands-on and available than what I had basically in the space, because I can't say that I would have been as successful in door-to-door if I didn't have that previous experience before that.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Because it's everything leading up to that point is what I poured into that. Yeah. And having a resilience to where you're able to just do it day in and day out consistently is a lot easier if you're well trained. It just is. So having more platforms and access to information, and being there for my reps in the field. That's pretty much it.
I got you. On your way up, what were some obstacles or some challenges that you faced, and how'd you overcome them?
Yeah, my biggest one, which I know we were talking about earlier, is just it's doing whatever it is that you're doing as an entrepreneur. You want to be moldable and you want to be humble, especially in the beginning. But once you've fallen on your face a couple times, do it the way that you need to do it and the way that you work. So what your morning routine might not look like everyone else's morning routine. Because I know for like a full year, I was like 5 a.m. club. and then like working till 9 p.m. And then even like for females, it doesn't work for us. We don't work the same way as men do. So I was like working like how a man would work, and then you just burn out, right? So it's being able to, if you want to mix in creativity, if you want to mix in every day doesn't look the same. Maybe some days I have early mornings and some days I have later mornings, but that's the best part about being an entrepreneur is being able to work the way you want to work. And as long as you're being productive and you're getting the things done that you need to get done, each day can look different. So I think that was my biggest mistake, is just like doing everything the way,
and you need to be a certain way.
Yeah, and doing it the way everybody else wanted me to do it, and not necessarily listening to that inner intuition of like, I think I have a good idea and I think this idea would work, and not listening to what everybody else thinks about it. So, and I think, you find your people along that path too for making those mistakes. But yeah, just doing it the way I want to do it, and treating each day the way it should be treated. Maybe, like I said, it's slower or faster. So,
right.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's interesting you say that. For me, I've never been a 5 a.m.er, ever. I'll wake up at 5 a.m. and go to the gym, maybe here and there, once a blue moon, maybe once every 2-3 weeks. But every day it has looked different in my journey. But just like you said, the good thing is I can go in whenever I feel like going in and want to go in. And but as an employee, you kind of do have to follow that structure a little bit more because you don't have a choice, which is also kind of a detriment. For example, I post on my story and it's like, morning breath work, or, just taking a couple intentional breaths and getting some sunlight on me. And then I'm thinking about it, it's like 8:12. The sun right now doesn't like fully like come up until like about 8:15. But my team needs to be there at 8:30. So in my mind, I'm like, my team ought to do this. But then I'm like, no, because they're on the way to the office right now.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, 100%. Yeah.
But there's, I think.
Well, yeah, and it's just changes from industry to industry. Because I would say in solar, because we typically don't have an office to go to. Okay. So unless you're like meeting up together at the park and doing some sort of like team building event, like you're usually just going, it's up to you to get out there and do it, right? Yeah. So I think my biggest thing is like, somebody's always watching, whatever you believe in, somebody's always watching. So that always kind of drove me. Like, even if I know that I'm not working, I know I should be working. Like, so I feel like at some point that's going to catch up to me in some universal way, right?
Right, for sure.
So, but yeah, I think that it can still look different. Like, even if you have to be somewhere at 8:30, maybe it's like some days you're waking up, like you're saying, sporadic, but you'll burn out so quickly if you do. I don't know how people do 4:30, 5 o'clock. No. But Hermosi's big on that. I always follow him where he talks about, he's like, your morning routine doesn't make you more successful. Yeah. He's like,
you just got to get up and like just get straight to it.
Yeah. And then some days you need the workout in the morning. Right. So
yeah, I value the different perspectives when it comes to that. Yeah. Because sometimes I need a cold plunge to just wake me up because I woke up super groggy. A cup of coffee is not going to wake me up. Like, my face is still not awake. My face is like down here. Yeah. So I guess just having that open mind, just do what works for you at the end of the day, right?
Yeah,
whatever
totally.
Works for you.
Yep.
Here's a question. Where do you see the solar industry going? Because I honestly have no clue. I don't have solar on none of my houses. I know that it's beneficial. Yeah. But I just don't have it on my house. Yeah. But anyway, where do you see solar going?
I think it's definitely becoming more regulated as we speak, and that's been happening in the last even year. I know Nevada ourselves have had a lot of changes, even just when it comes to how they pay reps. But the biggest thing is becoming more regulated in how it protects the homeowner. Okay. And that's really why I got involved in the roof. So I want to prevent solar reps. There's a big issue, I feel like, in solar where reps want to get this installed on the roof, but maybe the roof needs to be replaced, right? So if we're all working in conjunction together and doing these things properly permitted, properly licensed, and doing it the right way, solar is a really good thing. We have it on 2 houses. It works. If it didn't work, I wouldn't have it on my house. And it does prevent us from spending a bunch of money on something we can't cancel. Like we literally have to have power. Like we need water and we need food. You know how I feel about water too.
Yeah.
So it's like water, food, and power are like 3 just basic necessities that we're always going to have. So if you're in a situation where you can spend less money on something that you already have to have, and then know like ultimately I'm only going to spend this much money over time, it makes sense.
Right.
But where it doesn't make sense is where you hear all these stories of like, hey, I have solar on my roof. Now I have an issue because my roof wasn't properly inspected because maybe the solar site survey wasn't done properly because they're not a licensed roofer. So I think the regulations are really important for the homeowner. And I think
also things that I've heard is like making some 70-year-old person pull out a 30-year loan and things like that, like stuff that just kind of doesn't make sense for them, unless there is an alternative.
And that boils back to the mentor thing where it's like, who's going in the home and selling solar to someone and telling them, hey, like this is a good situation for you financially? It's very difficult when you have somebody who's never bought a house, doesn't know what a tax credit is, going in and convincing someone that this is a good situation for them. And now there's multiple ways to do it. And there are types of ways where it makes more sense for somebody who's retired or doesn't have taxable income or doesn't care about doing, getting the depreciation on the home for 10 years or things of that nature. So it really is dependent on the person. And that's why somebody training the reps before they go in home to sell it is so important, because if I were to walk into your house and tell you, let's say you're a retired 70-year-old man, and I could be pretty convincing to tell you, oh yeah, this is going to be great. It's going to save you money. But if I didn't know, like, you're retired, you have no taxable income, you live off Social Security, you're obviously not going to get a $20,000 tax credit next year. Right. So I've walked into situations where it's just, at the end of the day, it's just lack of knowledge. And that's why it's so important for us in this industry to be educated and seek outside training if your mentors aren't providing it. Right. But these are basic things that anybody that's going into the home to sell solar should know. Right. And how to pivot when it doesn't make sense for that homeowner, instead of like shoving one way down everyone's throats. Because that's why solar has a bad rap. Like in Vegas, it's saturated mainly because of how many people have come through here because of how much sun we have. It makes sense. But so many people are jaded by all these people that have told them, hey, my aunt has a friend that has a sister's brother that had this bad experience because someone didn't know what they were talking about. Right. And that's pretty much what it boils down to. But it's a good thing if it's done the right way. Right. So, yeah.
And I'm sure you get a lot of people that it's just like the car business where you can structure a deal very misleading in a way. I just had my buddy on here, and he was we were talking about how when I bought a car, I remember like finally I drove off the lot already. It's like the next day, and I'm like looking at that total price. I'm just like, why did it total up to be way more than I bought the car for? It's like $27K. Like the car sticker price was like $20,500. I'm like, so where, as I start like slowly going down line by line, I'm just like, what the heck is this? What is that? And people in there's bad apples in a lot of industries, but I'm a firm believer that there's usually more good people than bad people.
Well, and then you get your referrals.
Negative news spreads a lot quicker than positive news.
Well, and that's exactly why, I mean, even boiling down to the beginning of our conversation, it's if this industry does right by the homeowners, that by year 3, like this year, I'll be honest with you, I haven't really knocked any doors because I'm all referral based now.
Got it.
So if you do it the right way and you do right by whoever you're helping, then they're going to tell their friends or their aunts or their sisters or whoever it is. So I think ultimately it's just do the right thing, because the quick paycheck is never, especially if you're year 1 and you're planning on spending all your money anyway, you might as well do it the right way, so you have good karma.
That's something a lot of salespeople, I think, fail to understand. They just have that short-term mindset. But it's also people, I guess, just flaunting the money that can be made, and so they're just blinded by like the money and stuff like that. So,
but the ultimate thing is like you can make as much as you want when you're 1099.
Yeah.
So it's like to be put in a position where you can make as much money as you want is nice.
Yeah.
So because your business is all commission too, yeah.
For me, my team is W-2.
Okay.
So they're paid both base salary plus commission. Well,
Okay.
so my service team's hourly, but yeah, I mean, it's the same concept. They have
Yeah.
that upside or that unlimited earning potential.
Mm-hmm.
However, a lot of what I'm noticing
Mm-hmm.
is a lot of people they want a higher base, they want a higher hourly. And I think that it's a mistake a lot
It
of
is.
times.
100%.
Like, you gotta stop being scared of that small number.
Mm-hmm.
Especially when you get an opportunity to work with like a small business owner too.
Yeah, because then you're in the hiring situation. I mean, if you would have asked me if I would have ever gone to an all commissions based role, I believed so firmly that I needed the high salary.
Yeah.
I believed it so much until I got into an all commission role where I was like, oh, okay.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, this makes more sense because there are perks to both. But yeah, it's daunting in the beginning, of course.
Yeah.
It's all up to you.
Yeah.
It's all-
And take the risks while you don't have that many liabilities, right? So if like, I understand when you have like kids, and I totally just called kids a liability.
Because you're getting ready to have a
But,
baby.
yeah. But it's not an emotional liability,
Yeah,
it's just a financial one.
Yeah. Yep.
But when you can,
Yep.
take those risks. And I mean, sales, I love your story because sales changed my life.
Mm-hmm.
And I believe that when you own a business, it's sales just on steroids pretty
Yeah.
much.
Yep.
Because now you have to sell people on coming to work with you. You have to sell partners and vendors on getting the best possible deal. And you're selling somebody,
Yeah.
right? You're
All the
selling
time.
somebody,
Yep.
and sales prepares you for that best.
But it's also such a great community too. And I think like a big thing is like the proximity, because I wouldn't have met you if it wasn't for Tam, and I would have met you and your wife. I would have never met. It's the tie to the community more than anything that makes it even more fun. So you feel like you're working more when you work for yourself, but really it's just because you're kind of always.
It's life.
Yeah, it's your life now. Yeah, 100%.
My girl Cassidy was just on the show, and she said, like, I don't even see it as like work life or work business. It's like, it's just life at this point.
When those merge, it feels like I almost feel like a completely different person just from that, because I was such a different person at my job. I mean, I wonder if any of my old coworkers see this. There was a few of them I was able to be like truly myself, but a lot of times like your corporate work self and then your you after work. And you can't really merge the two because there's so many reasons why you can't really. Yeah. Sometimes it's just the pure nature of like being in different places, right? So I think when they merge and then it's all one thing, it's like like you're saying, it's not, you get excited to wake up because you're like, I'm going to go do something for my business, and I'm going to be able to hopefully make a difference like in somebody's life today at some point. Yeah. It's a reason to wake up, and if you have the team camaraderie, it's even better. The culture is a big thing. So
yeah, when people could just be them, all the time, like you're going to be in the best possible situation. Yep. So many people have two different people. I tell my team all the time, like,
be yourself.
Who is that person that, like, hi, Mr. Johnson, like, how can I help you? It's like, who is that guy?
Everyone does that.
You know?
Everyone does that in the beginning. I think I used to do, because we would do like bullpen, and we would be in a bullpen, with all of us making phone calls together. I think because you guys have
open sales floor.
And my voice would almost like change into like a higher pitch.
Yeah.
And that's how I knew I was like,
this ain't me.
Yeah. I'm like, what did I just say to that person?
Yeah.
But then when you're yourself, it's the right people. You're going to attract the right people, and it just is going to make your job so much more fun. Even on doors, I will just flat out joke with people. You just have fun with it. There's a couple people on Instagram that do a good job of this. Devin Galligan, I'll shout him out. But they're just funny. And you do all those reels too. Like, just have fun with it.
Yeah.
Because that's going to attract who you want it to attract, is just being yourself and having fun while you do your job, right?
Yep.
So.
Yeah, very true. Very true.
Yeah.
So let's see. I guess, I know you said mentors. Were there any resources or like books or like what helped you in your journey get to the next level?
So when it comes to selling, How to Master the Art of Selling, I got that book super early on.
Was the author?
Tom Hopkins.
Okay.
So, and he actually was one of my mentors this last year. So I would say the biggest thing is find a community, and like Race to Nagic has Race to Freedom. Find your community, and whatever that community is, get involved with the community, and go to the masterminds, and go to the events, and do the trainings, whether it's like on Zoom or whatever it is, like once a week, twice a week, whatever it is. That made a world of difference for me, is just the mentor mixed with the ability to have community. And maybe it's not just your work community, but it's people in the space maybe that work at a different office or sell solar for a different company, but we're all in that same community. That's the biggest thing, is just get involved in some way and meet your people that you can call to support you, even maybe if you don't work at the same company, because you need those people to like pump you up sometimes.
Yeah,
So.
it's very true. Events and just meeting people in different states, or even different countries in some situations where you realize, man, I ain't nothing. Like, there's some savages out there. Makes you uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Makes you uncomfortable.
Makes you grow too.
Yeah.
I met this 19-year-old it's called Knockstar University. It was basically a knocking mastermind that I was in this past year. 19-year-old making just crazy money every single month. And it's like, how can he not? He's around people that are making that amount. Like when you put yourself in rooms where I always want to be the poorest one.
Yeah.
And like the most to learn, because that's how you level up, right? So I can't even imagine being that age though.
Yeah, and I'm learning a lot that you've got to pay to play. Yeah. It's a concept that I would have never even entertained until I was a business owner, but paying 15 grand for a mastermind, it was like so stupid. I was like, it's so stupid in theory. It's like somebody were to ask you, like my mom were to ask me, you spend 15 grand for what? Oh yeah, it's just I meet with this group of people for 3 times a year, and we have a monthly call every once in a while, and we just share stuff.
Yeah.
It's like, what? 15 go? That's the stupidest investment you can make.
What if one person makes one comment that that just puts a light bulb off in your head, and then that one comment was the reason that you made tenfold than 15 grand?
It's true.
So it's worth it.
However, this is what I found. You also meet with other people that were also crazy enough to spend 15 grand to go hang out with you, right? So when you think about it from there, it's like,
wait a
these
minute.
are my kind of people.
Yeah.
These are the people that I want to know.
Yeah.
So
no, the pay to play, I wouldn't have ever imagined doing it, because I always would go to work events, but they were, just for the company that I was working for. So I think the big thing is like getting that outside perspective too. Is like you never know who you're going to be in a room with. I mean, and you said network marketing. Do you know who Rita Davenport is?
No.
She was the very first millionaire from Arbonne, but she was like the OG network marketer. But she was like I never did network other than really like, I guess, a Nagic a little bit. But I've never been in that space. But she was like such a big mentor to me because of Jolene. She's Jolene from like the song. Dolly Parton. No. Okay. Yeah. So she's really old school. But if you go back to sales books from like, back when they wrote How to Master the Art of Selling, nothing's changed.
Yeah.
Nothing at all has changed. But when you're in rooms like that, and then you meet people who have been, role models or people that you never would have imagined being in the same room, it's like, okay, this was worth it.
Yeah.
So just to like,
for sure,
rub off on me a little bit. So.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, just being just that energy, right?
Yeah, the energy for sure. Yeah.
Yeah. So, one of my last questions is the name of this podcast is the A1 Experience, and A1 means of the highest standards, of the highest quality. And so I guess I would like to know, what are 3 standards that you live your life by and why? Okay.
Yeah. Well, standards it doesn't have to be one word, right?
Yeah.
Just be, okay.
Yeah. Just philosophies.
Yeah. The biggest one and lesson from this past year is just follow your gut instinct, your intuition. And I guess for the women out there, like, women have a literal, real intuition that like will guide you through every decision you need to make. So you need to listen to that. And that's a big one. So standard of just like going with like your true self and like really just being that person who goes with their gut, their intuition. Obviously, you want to like be smart about it, but
Right.
go with your intuition. Work with people who give you the same respect that you give them. So whether it's time or effort, don't be the person that is always, you don't have to say sorry. I think a lot of people make that mistake, especially in the beginning when you're like learning, but you can really be, you really allow more people of a higher value into your life by setting boundaries, right? So the biggest thing there is just setting the boundaries. And I learned too late on how to set boundaries. So setting firm boundaries with yourself, with your friends, with your business, with family, whatever that is for you. And then the third one is just having the work ethic, putting the action in, and it doesn't happen after a year. There's so many women who reach out to me that are like, I've been doing this for 6 months and I haven't gotten results. And I'm like, okay, this is just the beginning. Like you're at the very beginning of the wave. And so have fun with it, enjoy it, but it goes like that.
Right.
But just know that it takes effort and consistency over time. I mean, anybody that's an entrepreneur knows that. But if you're a year in, if you're 2 years in, you're still in the beginning.
Yeah, very true.
So just stick with it and give yourself that discipline and consistency so that you can look back in 10 years and say, I'm here now because of that discipline and consistency. So yeah.
Most people don't stick it out.
No.
They don't. They just jump from thing to thing and they start over every single time. Dedicate that 5-6 years to something. You'll surprise yourself.
Yep.
Well, thank you for sharing.
Yeah.
How can people find you? How do you want them to find you? Social media, websites, or anything?
Yeah, I would say my Instagram is Morganize Nicole. So Morgan Ize Nicole. That's probably the easiest way to reach me. And I'm not really on YouTube or TikTok or any of those things too much, but yeah, very, very accessible through Instagram. So
Awesome.
I appreciate the time.
Yeah, Morgan. Well, thank you so much for being with us. I can't wait to chop this up and get it out to our audience. And so, I appreciate you. Thank you.
I appreciate you too. Thank you.